At the end of the day, it's not about what you have or even what you've accomplished. It's about what you've done with those accomplishments. It's about who you've lifted up, who you've made better. It's about what you've given back. Denzel Washington. Welcome to Inspire Vision. Our sole purpose is to elevate the lives of others and to inspire you to do the same.
Neil, welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here.
Well, and I really appreciate it. You've done a lot of things in your life, and you've obviously written this incredible book, and you have an amazing story. I'd love for you to share the audience who you are and what brought about you writing this book, and feel free to share some of those experiences.
Absolutely. So D. Neil Elliott, and the D is just initial for my first name to differentiate me on the internet. So who am I? Well, I am like you. I'm a spiritual being having a human experience.
Okay, and I agree with that.
And but from a human perspective, who am I? Professional engineer, MBA, managed projects in the corporate world for, over 30 years. Small and large, multi-millions and, a few 100,000. And married twice, second marriage, three kids combined, 5 grandchildren, sixth one at the end of this month, perhaps. And what else? I, like everybody else, got into kind of following the corporate world, and you do what you have to do to be able to survive and navigate through this world. And
Right.
as we do that, we kind of lose who we really are, and we become this a traumatron almost, kind of just trying to fit in and trying to work and trying to navigate our way through the world, and lose sight of kind of things that perhaps we should be focused on. Bottom line, got really depressed, suicidal, and then I had a spiritual awakening. And it's just been this. So I was 57, 58 by the time that happened. And then I just had this beautiful upward journey since then. And life is good. And, it doesn't mean I don't have challenges. Of course, we always do as we navigate this. But I just view the world so differently than I did before.
Yeah, and you talk about how, and someone used this phrase once before, and I just kind of fell into it, that we're really living a life as an imposter because we're not really living our life. We're living the life of our parents, of our school, of our religion, of our society. We're living everything that we think we should be rather than living who we truly are. Would you
Yes.
say that's a fair, accurate statement?
I say that's a fair and accurate statement. The only thing I would add to that is, it's all designed to work this way for us to have those experiences to learn and grow, and to learn and bring balance back. Balance the masculine and the feminine. And, we have been subjugated to this, society which has rules and structure, and we adopted those beliefs and we followed those beliefs, and look where it's gotten us, globally, individually.
That's so true. And you talk about a very sensitive issue, and that is suicide. And I just had a nephew that took his life, and I think that it's something that it's probably not the main topic we want to talk about today, but I'd love for you to share with the audience what feelings were you going through where you were near that situation, and then let's talk about what brought you out of that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I was working in the corporate world up until about 2002, and then I went into business on my own, and then became a consultant, and very successful in that business. My wife and I, she's from Germany. We had, great times traveling, all those kinds of things. So when I wasn't working, I was having a lot of fun and I loved to go out and see things. But in reality, being a project manager is really what it is. It's a stressful job. It's stress because you're worried about everything. You're trying to mitigate risk all the time. And you're trying to meet the needs of the client or your bosses if you're working in an organization. And they have high expectations. And you feel if you don't do well, you're going to be reprimanded or let go or whatever it is.
Right.
And so, you're balancing this all the time. And I believed I was doing okay, but really what was happening was I was getting really depressed. And I didn't share it with my wife and my family. And I just kept it to myself, didn't talk to anybody about it. And just, we wear this facade. We project whatever, we want that helps us
Right.
navigate the world. But inside, what you see and you see how somebody behaves is not necessarily how they really are, how they're really feeling.
True.
And so I was just totally like, I got to a point where no matter what I did, I couldn't get out of this depression. It felt like I was working to try and keep up with the Joneses or get ahead of them so I could show off, and feel good about myself, achieve a goal. And then after a while, it gets mundane and boring. So set another goal to achieve that, buy the car, buy the house, buy the motorcycle, those kinds of
Right.
things. And looking externally for all of these things that would fulfill me, that make me happy. And but really what I was doing was I was really detaching myself from who we really are, and just getting more and more depressed. And finally I got to the point of, what's the point of all of this? No matter how hard I work, no matter how much money I make, I can't seem to get ahead. I'm just part of that system. Can't seem to get ahead. Everybody, the banks make a lot of money from me, everybody else makes a lot of money. I'm working really hard, slaving away, and I can't seem to get ahead.
Yeah.
And so I just got to this point of, I'm done. Like, I'm gonna, our house finally sold after being on the market for 5 years. I felt my wife would be okay because, my life insurance, if I did it in the right way, life insurance would pay out and she'd be fine financially. And I could just exit without any harm to anybody. Now that's ridiculous now when I think about it because of all the people that would be upset about
Right.
that. But at the time, that's how I felt. So yeah, it's just, it's hard to describe, but just like totally done with life. Just,
And what happened? What brought you out of that situation?
well, the house sold, and live in Canada, West Coast Canada. And my wife got on a plane we were in this little 1-bedroom rental apartment. The house, we still had to move out and stuff. So about 3 months away till it actually closed, but we had the signed deal. My wife got on a plane to fly to Toronto, Ontario, Canada to visit family and friends. I sat down at this little 1-bedroom kitchen table, planned my suicide, crafted my suicide note. And about a week prior to that, some information came to me in this really fortuitous fashion. And it promised to liberate me from my thinking if I studied it and I followed it. And I thought, well, one last, little sliver of hope here. I'll give it a go. If it doesn't work, I can always pull the trigger. And so I thought, okay, well, I'll try this. And this is the information I share in my book. I share this whole story and then this information in the book. So if people want to know what information that is, they get my book, they'll find out. There's prelude to the story till you get to the information. And so I started studying it and following it. And part of the process is this meditation. And the meditation, you learn to go beyond the intellect, beyond all reasoning, and go into the silence and stillness of your mind. So there's a practice for doing that. There's a way to do it, and you have to know what your target is. And this information was it was based in Newtonian science, and it bridged this gap between spirituality and science in a way which I had never read before. And what I did was I read it without judging it, and if I came across something that I was reading that I kind of like, I don't know about that, I just put it aside, and I thought about all the things that did make sense to me at the time. And so I just followed it. And it took about a month and a half or so to go through the material, maybe 2 months to go through the material. And I just kept cycling through that material as I was learning to practicing meditation. And at about the 7 month mark, so I was kind of building faith as I was going. This was so logical and rational. I thought, okay, well, I'll just keep going on this and I'll try it. If it doesn't work in a year or two, I can always pull the trigger. And about the 7 month mark, I felt this little tingling at the top of my head. Didn't know what it was, felt really strange, never felt it before. But I thought, okay, well, whatever, I'll just keep going on this. And about the 9th month, that little tingling about the size of a dime grew to about 4 inches in diameter. And then it just kept growing. Like today, you put a bowl over my head, and that opening is as big as that,
Right.
below my ears. And what was happening was I was building new brain cells impressed with new knowledge under the top of or at the top of the brain underneath the skull. And they operated at a higher vibrational frequency, which allowed whatever you want to call it, God, our creator, source, prime, the universal, whatever you want to call it, make this connection. And then this energy would flow in through my head, and it might reside in my head or in my chest or my throat or my solar plexus. It would come into my body and go down one side of the body and up the other side of the body, or it'd go down the whole body and then back up, or just sit in certain areas in the body. And I could feel all of this going on as I meditate. And I meditate 90 minutes every morning. First thing when I get up, I get coffee, I sit down, I listen to a little bit of the material, and then I meditate. And then at the end of December, so that was this was November 2017. The end of December 2018, I had 2 meditations 2 days apart. I went into this meditation and, kind of got settled and in it, into the silence and stillness of the mind. And then all of a sudden, like in a flash, like in a nanosecond, I was just filled with unconditional love, and totally like I was a deep sea diver suspended in an ocean of unconditional. It was just, I felt non-judged. I felt, didn't matter what I had done to anybody. I felt, didn't matter what anybody had done to me. I just felt totally loved and supported. And we don't have the human language to describe it. But, I was in that meditation, and I wanted to stay there. I didn't care what aches and pains my body had, what illnesses it had, nothing. And so I came out of that meditation, and 2 days later, I had the exact same meditation. And yeah, it was just beautiful. So I've just sitting here, just want to make sure that the audio and the video is coming through okay.
Oh, everything's coming through okay. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. And anyway, so I came out of that, and then 2 days later, I had the exact same meditation. And at that point, I knew that what I experienced brought me back and brings us back, if we follow this kind of process, brings us back to our truth of who we really are. And then from that point forward, it's just been this onward, upward knowing. You get to a point where you know that what you know is true, and then things just start to unfold. And it's a learning process. It's an experiential process.
Well, it is. Yeah, it is. And I notice, you refer the book, but you don't really want to talk about it. But what I find, and I challenge my authors who I love to interview, and such as yourself, to really talk about what's in the book, and to give the audience just a sense of what's there. Because what I find is, if they get a sense of what's really in the book, and if they get a sense of what you really were doing, that actually will help them, and potentially instigate them to get the book and to read further and to really understand what you experience. I love how you talk about meditation. So how did you how did you come across meditation, and which meditation process did you come across?
Yeah, absolutely. And I can talk about what I meant was this material that came to me. I share that in the book. I don't, and the reason I don't tell people what it is, I can talk about it, but I don't tell them what it is because it's marketed in such a way most people would run from it. I certainly would have. But I was at such a depressed state that I was willing to read or look at anything. So that's the thing about it. But the book, yeah, absolutely. So the meditative state. So in the late 90s and early 2000s, I tried various meditations. None of them really stuck. Wayne Dyer had a CD of 20 different types of meditation,
Right.
and I tried them all out. And they lower blood pressure and they lower anxiety, especially when you're in it. But there wasn't any real experiential thing. Like spirituality is not an intellectual thing; it's an experiential thing.
Right.
And so, what I found out was by reading this material is we really need, or at least I needed to understand in a logical way why and how we are here and how the universe is created, and then how we become in this physical form, and what our purpose in life is. I needed to understand those elements. Then in this material, and you don't learn till you're near the end of this material how to really do it, because there's a bunch of information you need first before this meditation works in the effective way that it does. But essentially what you're doing is you are going into a state of silence and stillness in the mind. And so I can stop all my thoughts. And if any thought comes in, I just let it flow past. I don't think on it. I don't dwell on it. I'm just in the state of stillness and silence. So I'm not listening to somebody give me a guided meditation. What I want to do in this meditation, and what it's structured to do, is get you beyond the human intellect, beyond your own imagination, because in the imaginative realm of your mind, your ego may or may not be dormant. And typically when you go into meditation, if you are walked through a meditation, you are going further into the imaginative realms of whatever somebody is telling you to imagine.
Right.
And our creator, there's two states of creation, but the original cause, if you will, is in the silence and stillness and equilibrium. And it is these opposing impulses that were torn apart at the time of the Big Bang to create this active state of creation. And the silence and stillness of the universal, as it were, is these mutual impulses that are opposing, that are locked in this embrace. And when they were torn apart, they were able to work independently, but also jointly. And so it's this will to move out and create with the purpose to give form to that creative consciousness plan and experience it. And we see it as electromagnetism. Essentially, it's this energy of creation that enables us to, and we could describe this in quantum physics, we can describe it in Newtonian physics, there's different ways to describe it, but essentially your thinking is a creative consciousness plan, and your feeling is magnetism, these impulses of drawing things together or pushing them apart. And your feelings put form to this creative consciousness plan. So the more you think about something, the more you dwell upon something, that is what you experience in your life. If you want to change that, you need to understand that what you think is right, wrong, good, bad, true, false is really just a belief. And then if it's just a belief, when you have the methodology to do it, you can actually go in and you can dismantle those beliefs and change them. And if you change those beliefs to be consistent from where we come from before we die and where we return to after we're dead, when we die, excuse me, before we're born and then after we die,
Right.
you invite the universal to come in and help you and start to cleanse your consciousness and then rebuild it to be consistent with who we are. And when
And,
you,
and I'd love for you to just kind of share with the audience, you talk about where we were before we came here and where we go after we die. And, there are very, very many people with different religious beliefs or non-religious beliefs about all of that. But based on your experience and your perception of what happened, what would you share with the audience as far as what your thoughts are about that?
good question. So I'm going to use human language to do this, and it's going to be kind of the shadow consciousness form.
Okay, that's all
Yeah.
right.
So we'll call it in the beginning, although that's wrong because all that exists is consciousness.
Okay.
Consciousness, awareness. Those are the only things that exist. They are inseparable. You can't have awareness without consciousness, and you can't, if you were not aware, you would be like a statue.
Right.
A bomb could go off and you wouldn't be. So consciousness, awareness are conjoined and never separated, and consciousness is all that exists. And so you in this human body is really everything is consciousness made visible in this world that we live in. So this microphone is consciousness made visible. I am consciousness made visible. You, everything is. And from my perspective, or yours, we can go either way, but I'm the only one in the room, so to speak. Everything that I experience is merely a reflection of my thinking and feeling. And if I change my thinking and feeling to be congruent with where we come from before we're born and where we return to after we die, what we do is we come back to the state of unconditional love. And then we're here to experience. So what this form does allow for us is it allows us to experience all of those things that seem to be contrary to the light. Light, dark. You can't experience light without knowing what dark is. You can't experience hate without knowing what love is, etc. And so being in this body allows us to experience those things. And when we come to understand everything comes from love, and it's just, we go from a low vibrational frequency of all of these things which are contrary to what we would consider to be love. So hate, anger, judgment, all of those things, to this state of unconditional love. And beyond the unconditional love that a parent has for a child, it is absolutely just accepting and know that everything is, now I'll call it God for the lack of a better term at this point, but everything comes from unconditional love. Everything comes from the light, from the love. And so even something that we don't like, that I experience that I don't like or I judge, is my creation. And my goal here and our purpose here is really to learn that that's my creation, to experience what I feel. Let that energy of, hate or anger, or whatever, just flow through me, but learn to love what I'm experiencing because it's part of my creation. If I reject it, what I'm doing is setting myself up for a cycle for that to continue to come back because I'm rejecting part of my creation.
Yeah, and I love the concept of that which we resist persists. And
Yes.
That's exactly what you're saying. And so in your book, you talk about 7 steps to being able to really turn yourself around. So for people that are listening that find themselves in that moment of time where they are discouraged, they're depressed, they're just so frustrated with their lives, what are those 7 steps that they could be at least aware of and maybe even do some more research on by getting your book that can help them? Do you mind sharing those?
No, not at all. So the first thing I had to do was, and I have a chapter or a section in the book that describes this. There's some background material that I had to read. So one, I had to learn and understand that everything that I thought. So this is before I get to the 7 steps, but I'll just give you a quicker review of this. So before I could get to the point where what I believe to be right is right and what I believe to be wrong is wrong, I had to understand that those were just beliefs. So I read this book that helped me understand that even though I think it's right and wrong, it's really just a belief. And if I change my belief, I can do that. Next thing I read was a book on epigenetics that explained to me that what we think about and what we feel affects our biology. So if we're feeling ill and we're feeling sick or we're having illnesses come to us, or we're in really good health, it's predominantly due to how we think and how we feel. So we can draw illnesses to us or we can draw health to us. And then I read a book on neuroplasticity, which helped me to understand that, contrary to a belief back in the 60s that as we get older, our brains, shrink and get, atrophy, we can actually build new brain cells. So that was all a prelude. Then I read a near-death experience. So this is step one. This is stretching your consciousness. I read a near-death experience of a woman who suffered from an aggressive form of cancer for about 6 years. And she went from a weight of, a normal body weight down to about 90 pounds, 75 to 90 pounds. And she couldn't lift her head anymore. She was bedridden. She was at home, had to be on oxygen 24/7, needed 24/7 care. She fell into a coma. She's riddled with cancer from her head to her waist, some tumors the size of lemons in her body. And she fell into this coma. They rushed her to the hospital. The admitting physicians told her family she wasn't going to make it through the night. And in that 24-hour period after getting in the hospital, they did a bunch of tests and scans and stuff. She went through this near-death experience. And she came out of that, and within 2 weeks, they couldn't find a trace of cancer in her body.
Wow.
All medically documented. And they call it spontaneous remission. And she describes what she experienced in such a way that is neutral. It's free of any human concepts of religion or anything else. So she just described what she experienced. That book gave me the permission for myself to commit suicide because I had this little nagging doubt. And what I learned from her was that we're not judged after death. I didn't necessarily understand it all, but it gave me all the concepts. And so it was something to hang on to. So that's number one. So that will give you a new understanding, or the reader a new understanding of what consciousness is. Then in step two, I share this compendium of material that came to me that I utilized over the course of that year. And I share some of what I call truths in this material as excerpts so that the reader can see where it comes from, understand where it comes from, and then get a concept of how easy it is to understand, but the brilliance of the writing. Then step three is to sit down and write yourself a letter. I call that a reflection step. And it's you write yourself a letter that will never be shown to anybody else. It's only for you. And you really are honest with yourself about how you feel about the world and about your situation. And I mean, really honest. Don't hide anything. You write it down.
Right.
Then you put it in an envelope, you seal it. And if you follow this process, you open it a year later because it becomes a benchmark of the changes that will occur. And then step four is really this cleansing of your consciousness. So it's going through this process of understanding how you're going to cleanse your consciousness, how you make connection with source that helps you go through and starts to change your beliefs and your consciousness. Step five is this process to rebuild your consciousness. So you're doing these simultaneously. You're starting the cleanse, you're starting the rebuild. And this is an iterative process. It's not a one and done. And step six, as I mentioned later in this compendium material, you're going to learn this meditation. So in the material, it's going to ask you to meditate, and you just do the best you can to begin with and be patient to learn the material that you need to learn, and then it's going to teach you about, it's going to give you a prayer to use before you go into this meditation. And and you'll know what your target is at that point. So then you're going to go into this meditation. Now I give some people some tips. Before I started this journey, I started to listen to audiobooks. And for me, I'm, visual learner engineer.
Right.
So it's like I can be easy. I'm distracted by shiny objects. I'm doing something, shiny. Oh, let me go over there and do that. And so in order to slow my mind down and really be able to focus, the outcome of having to listen to those audiobooks that I started this process on helped me I'd sit down in my chair as if I was going to read a book. I'd put on headphones, I'd close my eyes, and I just focus on listening to the word speaking. That taught me to train my mind to be able to stop my thinking. So I didn't struggle with that process as much during this year as I would have if I hadn't done that process ahead of time. And that was just a fortuitous process. So you'll learn this meditation. So step 6 is learn this meditation. And step 7 is kind of rinse and repeat. You're going to go back and you're just going to keep cycling through. You're not going to continue to write yourself this letter because you've done it, but you're going to go back. You're going to listen to some material or read some of this material, and you're going to meditate, and you're just going to continue to go through this process. And the key is it doesn't happen overnight. It's not a one and done. You've got to put time, energy, and effort in it, and you have to be consistent.
All right. So you talk a lot about meditation, and I love those 7 steps. And obviously near the end is that meditation. And I don't mean to jump through the rest of them, but as we talk about meditation, you're talking about how you're meditating 90 minutes each morning.
Yeah.
I guarantee you not many people could start meditation and do it for 90 minutes. So I have a few questions with that. Number 1, how do you begin the process to continue? Number 1. Number 2, one of the things that you mentioned was the guided meditation, that you kind of have avoided that guided meditation concept for whatever reasons. So I'd love for you to kind of share your thoughts of why you do that and what type of meditation are you actually doing? 3 questions.
Yeah. Okay. So you're right. Most people are not going to be able to do 90 minutes, and you don't have to. I'm going to suggest to you want to practice with at least starting with 15 minutes and build up to whatever you're comfortable with over time. So it might be 15 minutes, might be 15 minutes always. You might build up 15, 20, 30, 40 hour, whatever it is.
Right.
So the thing that I do is I sorted out really early that meditating after I engaged my brain by talking to other people or being involved in work didn't work for me because I'm too active. So I decided first thing I get up early, I relax, go to the washroom, have a coffee, sit down, get into the mode by listening to some audio of this material, and then put in foam earplugs, get relaxed in a chair, like I use a reclining chair, so that I relax my head, my face, my neck, my entire body. I'm not using any muscles to keep me upright. And what that allows me to do is get into this relaxed state of almost like as simple as slipping into slumber, so to speak.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And you're in this theta state. And then because I listened to these audiobooks, I could train my mind to understand that these thoughts that come to my brain are not necessarily originated from me. So I see them as a stream of thoughts that go by my awareness. And what we typically do is we pick a thought out of that stream. If it's consistent with the way we're thinking, we keep it. If it's not, we throw it back. And so what I do is I don't pick any thoughts out of the stream. I just let them go through. And I just go into this state of silence. And then the energy, like today, the energy comes to me even before I start my meditation. But Back then, I would have to just get into this and get really relaxed, and then all of a sudden the energy would start to come in. Might come in fast, might come in slowly. That then kept me going. Okay, so does that answer your first question?
That does, yes.
Okay. Second question was,
Oh, I can't even remember. Oh, yes, guided versus music versus no sound at all.
oh, okay. So the reason I don't do the music is because then I start focusing on the music, or if somebody's speaking to me, they are typically directing me in terms of a thought process.
Yes.
And so I'm focused on that thought process. And as I said earlier, you know, when you're in your imagination, your ego may or may not be dormant. And what you want to do is you want to go beyond human intellect and reasoning, which means you want to keep your ego out of it. And so by going into the silence and the stillness and just allowing those thoughts to go by without choosing any, I sit in that space where I'll call it the universal that is in silence and stillness that emanates unconditional love to us 24/7. We don't feel it because our vibrational frequency is so low that it can't penetrate and make itself known to us. When we go into this state of silence and stillness, what we're doing and know what our target is, we are inviting that source energy to make itself known to us. And it takes a while to build these new brain cells impressed with this new knowledge that then operate at this higher frequency. So those are the reasons I don't do guided meditations.
All right. And you talk about these frequencies, and, you know, everybody has a different, you mentioned quantum field. You know, oftentimes we've heard about meditation, we hear about all of these things, and it's like, it's a little woo-woo, you know, a little bit out in, you know, left corner. But actually, there's a lot of scientific backing now as far as the advantage of meditation and what it can do for you. Can you kind of share what your thoughts and what your knowledge is about the quantum field and this energy or these frequencies that are available for us to bring into ourselves if we're just able to do that and meditate to do that?
Yeah. So there's different ways to describe this, but you know, essentially, when you look at an atom and then you get into smaller and you get into these quarks and other things, you get to a place where we understand that, you know, string theory of quantum physics is that everything is just energy. And so we're just energy made visible through the drawing of particles together, creation of atoms, molecules, you know, those kinds of things. And so if everything is just energy, you know, there has been scientific evidence now that when you think or you're observing something, you actually create essentially a molecule, a ball of energy that draws particles together to create a molecule. And so you actually create the experience that you want through the bonding and the bringing of all these things together. Your thinking is consciousness. We are consciousness beings made visible. So everything is consciousness. And when you think of something, what you're doing is you're putting a consciousness plan together. When you feel, what you're doing is you're starting to draw this energy together to create this experience that you're going to experience. So I give an example in my book. In 2011, so since I was 20 years old, well, since I was a kid, my mom, we used to go to these fairs, the Pacific National Exhibition, and it was every year they had a house and 12 cars they were giving away. So my mom used to buy tickets all the time to, you know, either win the house or the car. And when I was 20, 1980, I adopted buying these tickets. So I just religiously buy them. It supports the fair, gives me the opportunity to win something. In 2011, I thought, oh, I'd like, you know, a hardtop Lexus convertible. And so I started to fantasize about that. Every day for a year, I thought about own that car, top down, windy road, wind in my hair, and the joy I would feel about that car. And I had a picture of it on my wall. And I do that 15, 20 times a day. Sit in a chair just for 3-4 minutes, visualizing and doing that. I bought a ticket in the spring to this fair that had the draws in the fall, always hoping to win the house. I had a nice car, always hoping to win the house. And I didn't even look at the cars. And in September, so about a year later, almost exactly a year later since I started this visualization process, I got a phone call one day. It said P&E, Pacific National Exhibition, P&E. So I picked it up. I said, hello. And they said, blah, blah, blah. They asked who I was and verified that. Then they said, you've won a car. And I said, really? Oh, what kind of car did I win? They told me the model and stuff. And I said, oh, what kind of car is that? And I said, it's a Lexus hardtop convertible. It was the exact car I had in the picture.
Wow.
This is the way we create our reality every day, and we don't even know it. Everything that you experience is due to your thinking and your feeling. The things you like, the things you don't like. So when you learn to dismantle your current thinking, your current beliefs, and bring it back to be congruent, you will learn to view the world in an entirely different way. So when I look at somebody else, I know that their soul is equal to my soul. Their soul is perfect. Their soul is unconditional love. And anything that they are doing is merely the things that they have come here to learn, to experience, and to bring balance back. We are here to balance the masculine and the feminine. And you balance the feminine or the masculine by bringing balance through your feelings. And when you learn to bring these feelings in, experience them for what they are, love them for what they are, what you're experiencing, but choose to think loving, kind, unconditionally loving thoughts to everything and every experience and accept it as your creation, you start to bring balance back within yourself and harmony back within yourself. And you view the world, no matter what's going on in the world right now, there's many horrific things. I don't get fussed or concerned about anything, because it's all to create this experience of us to bring this world into a new era of love and peace. There's going to be a lot of changes in the next 10 years. There's going to be drastic changes in the next 100. And over this millennium, this world will come into this state of unconditional love and peace. And all of these things, all of these structural things we have in society about finances and people, that's all going to disappear. It's going to be an entirely new way to live. It's going to be a way of love and peace and joy and abundance. And everything that you want, everything that you need to be happy and joyous and peaceful and loving and kind will come to you without this struggle that we currently are in.
Well, and what a beautiful, beautiful thing that's going to be. And as you say, it really starts with the one, doesn't it? It starts
Absolutely.
with each one of us seeking to become better, seeking to become who we truly are. And then obviously, as we give forth that energy and share that with others, and they start to do the same thing, as you say, maybe millennium, but ultimately we're going to get there. And I love that. How do people find your book, number one? And go ahead and reframe what your book's name is, and then how do they find you?
So the book is called A Higher Road, Cleanse Your Consciousness to Transcend the Ego and Ascend Spiritually. And it's a 7-step process to inner peace, joy, love, abundance, and prosperity. It's sold globally wherever books are sold. The easy way to find it's on Amazon. And it's by D as in Donald Neil Elliott. If you go to ahigherroad.com, that'll take you to my author website. And, there's many paths to the top of the mountain. This is one that made sense to me. It's logical, it's rational. I shared my personal experience of my life, and I gave a memoir about the kinds of way I grew up and the kinds of thinking that shaped my thinking and my feelings that then I reinforced and adopted over my lifetime that really bound down my soul and shut it off from the light. And by cleansing your consciousness, what you do is you take these bondages off and you allow your soul to make this connection back. And then that starts to manifest in your outer world.
Oh, and I love that. And you said something I think so important. Everyone has a different path, but so often we try to do it on our own. When in fact, as you said, you read books, you did all the studying that really helped you to get to a point. It's the same with you writing this book. You're going to reach people who are going to identify and connect with your experience, and it will make all the difference in the world to their lives. So kudos to you for writing the book, for being so transparent as you're willing to share your life story and so forth. I think that's wonderful. And I really appreciate you being on the show today.
Well, thank you. And I appreciate being here. And my goal is to give people a way forward that gets them out of this cycle that we're currently in. And, and I say, look, you might have to read 4 or 5 or 10, 20 books, and it might take a while, but one day you're going to find that path that makes sense to you. We need something that works for the logic that we have. You put 100 people in a room, you deliver a message one way, it hits 10%. You deliver the exact same information, but you do it a different way, it hits another 10%, and so on. And so, these many ways that are available to us, I can tell you this important piece is that when you find something that makes sense to you and works, stop looking without. Everything is within. And learn to go within and learn to go through this process and then begin to trust. You will be given guidance. You will be given instructions. And you have free will. You can choose to ignore it. You can choose to do it. But you will come to a place where you are given instructions and you will follow them with faith and understanding that you don't know how it's going to work, but it will all work out for the best for you.
Amen to that. Well, thanks so much, Neil, for being on the show. And folks, thanks for listening. I hope you really enjoyed this, and get a hold of this book. It sounds like it's something that could be a very great benefit for many of us that are experiencing different things in our lives. So this is Dr. Doug saying thanks for joining us, and namaste.
Namaste.